Good evening. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is the Henry Ford College Board of Trustees meeting for April 19th. We are coming to you from Zoom. The Zoom number is 965-3593-7335. This is the first time the Henry Ford College Board of Trustees has met in person since February of last year. It's good to be able to be back with everyone. The site looks a little bit different because we're actually coming to you from our P12 side because they are set up to be able to hold a meeting like this versus us being a bunch of different little boxes. Personally, I kind of like this because the camera's way far away from me and I feel I look better than I would if we were doing this normal. The other thing, I will let the crowd know that's watching us from home. When we're speaking, we do not need to have our masks on, but when we aren't speaking, you will see us usually put our masks back on. I don't know that you can really tell from the screen, but we've also got dividers between each of us to keep everybody safe. So thank you for joining us tonight. We're called to order. Could I please get a roll call?
Trustee Sam Berry.
Here.
Trustee Patrick D'Ambrosio. Here. Trustee Roxanne McDonald.
Here.
Trustee Adam Mozub here. Trustee Mary Petlishkoff.
Here.
Trustee Irene Watts.
Here.
Chair James Thorpe.
Here. Next item, please.
Approval of minutes. Approval of minutes for the regular Henry Ford College Board of Trustees meeting and the Policy Committee meeting on March 15th, 2021. Recommended action, make any necessary corrections and move to approve these minutes.
So moved.
Support.
We've got a motion by Trustee Berry, support by Trustee Petlicoff. Any changes that need to be made? I had sent one item over to Kathy earlier today. Was there anything that anyone else spotted? And it was just about the attendees for the policy committee meeting.
Oh, I was gonna say, do we need to know what you changed?
Adel's name had been listed twice and Hussein hadn't been on it, so we just added Hussein. So, all right. Since we are in person, we do not need to do a roll call vote. All in favor of accepting the minutes as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Next item, please.
President's items.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you all in person. I appreciate the effort that has gone into this, and I would be remiss if I didn't start with noting my appreciation to our teammates in the P12 or the Dearborn Public Schools, as it is also known. You all have a fantastic leader in Dr. Glenn Maleko, and he has a fantastic group of teammates that serve him. And I feel as much at home here as we do on our campus as a result of their hospitality and frankly, their great support network here. And I appreciate you all coming to this meeting, and it's good to physically see you all for the first time, and some of you, I think it's been more than a year. So I will say, our erstwhile colleague Mary Lane used to tell us how much she missed us being together and how much that added to the value of our meetings. And I can sense it just in the first initial minutes of us being together. So I appreciate you all making what is sometimes a little bit of a difficult decision to come together. And I'll just repeat, there's no way we would be able to do this with the way we have our campus right now on campus. So that we're together is a testament to the teamwork between the P12 and the college. I also want to take an opportunity to follow my colleague, Dr. Maleko, in his meeting with you all last week in recognizing National Arab Heritage Month, which takes place in April. And you all will recall, but our audience may not recall what Dr. Maleko said. And he reminded us that this is an opportunity to celebrate Arab American heritage and culture and how it gives strength and history to our country. And it actually is focused on looking at the contributions that Arab Americans and Arab-speaking Americans have given to our country. And it is also a great opportunity to show that by telling our friends and some of our teammates, even on this board, who practices the Islamic faith, Ramadan Mubarak. I hope that your Ramadan is enjoyable and successful. And I have to tell you, I am not a practitioner of the Islamic faith, but I understand the tenets of Ramadan, and I have to imagine it is even more of a process during a pandemic. And my hope is that when sundown comes tonight, you're able to have a drink or maybe a bite, and maybe even the president won't talk as long, so you can get out and back to your families. And to all of my colleagues and teammates and students, my sentiments go to you in this very important holy observation for you. Another very important, only slightly less important than Ramadan, is 2 days from now, and it's April 22nd, also known as Administrative Professionals Day. And I would like to take the liberty, I very rarely speak for the board, but I will take the liberty of speaking for the board and thanking the administrative professional who has served us for so long and for so well. And during now a pandemic, and multiple presidents, multiple chairs, multiple trustees. She's a person that keeps me headed in the right direction, and I know she helps you all out so well. And I know there are a lot of administrative professionals around the world, but I'm not convinced any of them are better than my colleague and teammate, Kathy Dimitriou. She'll
Needs the Kleenex now.
That's right. But you know, there are also a lot of administrative professionals at the Henry Ford College, and one of the things that we really enjoy being able to do is come together, and we simply can't do that 2 days from now. So the best I can do is to say, from again taking the liberty and speaking on behalf of all the board, thank you to all of you who serve us in administrative professional roles. It is true that you are the unsung heroes. There's a lot of people who say a lot of multi-syllable words and wear ties and suits that act important. But the truth is, most of us, if we're successful, are as a result of teamwork that you all give us. So please know that 2 days from now, everyone from this board and the college is appreciative of the effort you put out to help us all keep everything going straight. And I will tell you, there has never been a 12-month period, probably in the last 100 years, that didn't show the value and the importance of administrative professionals. And so 2 days from now, please know my heart and the entire board's heart goes out to you.
Those comments deserve a round of applause.
Thank you, Trustee Barry. And now, Mr. Chairman, I would just note for you that I do have a proposal on the agenda on action item number 8 regarding the HR executive director. I will ask the board not to take action on that because I do not have a proposal for administration from the administration on that action. Of course, you own and operate your agenda. That is merely a request. I also wanted to update the board on something we talked about last time, which was the amount of funds that were coming to the college to support students from federal stimulus. And you'll recall that the second round of stimulus funding was dictated to go to students, and we were grateful for the federal legislation that gave $4.6 million to the college that with directions directly to give it to students. And you may recall that we had estimated we would do about half of that in this current winter semester and about another half of that in the fall. We weren't sure what would come of that, but we set up a system that you all had a lot of very good questions about last time we met. And it was an application system that gave students direct funds to help them with their education based on how many credits they take and their need. And that was following regulations from the Department of Education after the legislation was passed. And just to level set, remember, this is only the second federal stimulus. It does not relate to the American Rescue Plan, otherwise known as the ARP. Well, I'm happy to tell you that we didn't put a cap on how much funds we would put out. We hoped it would be at least half of the half of that 4.6 million. And here we are a little bit more than 3 weeks into the process, and we now have given all of the $4.6 million out. We believe the last count I had was we had over 3,600 applications for that funding. And of course, you remember the funding went, I believe, from $800 to $2,000 grants, and it's now exhausted that amount. So that need was there, and we moved quickly to meet it. The good news is, of course, the federal government did come after that, as I mentioned, with the American Rescue Plan, and infuse another series of opportunities to give students funding. But I know each of you were interested and asked really important pivotal questions about how we were going to handle that first $4.6 million from the second stimulus bill. And I'm happy to report that that money is now in the hands of students, hopefully lessening the burden of what it must be just an amazingly difficult time to try to go to college during this pandemic. And some of you may ask, well, what about the money you had hoped to give in the fall? Of course, my plan is to meet with you and propose ways similar to the way we did just this semester, and frankly, during the first federal stimulus, that we continue to do that with the third, or the American Rescue Plan money, as we progress into the fall. So stay tuned for that. I have one more item, and then I'll take any questions you may have. You will see in our action items, there is a significant amount of hiring going on at the college. And I know that many of you who have been on the board for a while know that some of the more important decisions that happen at this college are hiring of proposed hiring of faculty members. And you'll see several on your agenda today. And I just wanted to note for you that that is in concert with the process that we, over the last 12 months, have undertaken through the pandemic. You recall that we did have a voluntary early separation plan that had a large change to the ranks of our faculty. And we also, in good collaboration with the leadership of the full-time faculty represented by the AFT 1650, have set out processes to continue to hire and replace those individuals who did retire at the end of the last calendar year, and then some are currently retiring now in this calendar year. But I wanted you and everyone else to be aware that the increased number of hiring with faculty are in concert with and in keeping with the plan that we had laid out. And that will continue. It will continue into probably the next several board meetings. And I appreciate your consideration of those hires. And depending on the outcome of that action item, which is item number 7, I would ask the board chair to give me a chance to make a comment about that action item if and when after that action item is reviewed by the board. Thank you for your time. I appreciate seeing you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Trustee Pelichkov.
Just real quick with the hiring, since you're discussing it, are we able to fulfill these positions through our adjunct pool more so than any other options, or are these part of the adjunct being added to, since some of them are temporary?
The answer to your question is yes. Adjuncts are always, as is anyone, entitled to apply for full-time positions. And in some of the information I've circulated to the board, you can see the number of applications per opening. In many instances, it's about 80 per opening. And adjuncts do often apply. And that is part of the rubric that the Academic Affairs Leadership Council, in association with the faculty leadership, look at. So the answer to your question is yes, we are able to take from the best of the best in the adjunct faculty ranks to fill these. It is not a requirement, but it is an option.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Moses.
I have a question about the student aid. I understand the April 26th is a deadline to apply for those funds.
You know what, Trustee Moses, I don't recall if you're talking about the 4.6 that we let out.
Yes.
Let me ask Mr. Satkowski, and I will say this is the first time we've tried to flex our muscles in this hybrid meeting. So if Mr. Satkowski, if you can hear me, can you unmute and help me with that answer? Is there a deadline for that, recognizing that the first allotment is exhausted, which I suspect Trustee Moses' next question is going to relate to. But Mr. Satkowski, can you remind me what the deadline was, if you have it off the top of your hand, for the applications?
I believe that's correct. That's correct. It's April 28th, but we have not stopped taking applications, even though we have utilized the entire amount of from the second go around. Our third go around is going to be around over $16 million, and we'll talk a little bit more about that a little later on. But we are continuing and would tap into CARES, I'm calling it grandson of CARES, if you will, since it's the third allocation, that it would be using those funds to meet the significant demand that we had in the winter semester. So yes to April 28th, and yes, that we are continuing to honor those applications that have been put in up until that date.
The projected 16 mil, that's the student portion only, correct?
Correct, yes.
And look, it worked beautifully.
Any further questions? Any additional items?
Trustee Watts.
Trustee Watts.
What is the time frame for the American Rescue Plan? What is the beginning versus the end?
I don't believe the funds have flowed to the institutions yet, but I do know that one of the things that they changed, the Congress, when they made the last and largest stimulus, is that they gave a longer window of time to spend out that money. I believe it's 2 years, but it might go into 2024, Trustee Watts. I don't recall. But I will have to say, it will be my recommendation that with respect at least to the student allotment, which is the 16.6 that Mr. Satkowski just referenced, gauging by the demand we saw this semester, we'll burn through that way quicker than 2024. The institutional allotment, which is another $16.6 million, it will be a different analysis about whether we'll move quickly through that.
I stand corrected on the date. It's great when you can sit next to your computer and call the things up. It's April 23rd is the deadline.
President Cavallini, do you have any additional comments?
No, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Before we move on to the.
Actually, you know what? I went right over something and I'm so sorry. I say I didn't have any comments. This is one of the most important things I wanted to talk about. The men's basketball team had a really rough season. They couldn't practice, and when they could practice at the beginning, they had to wear masks and not use any basketballs.
Wow, that's an interesting practice.
And as a former basketball player, I sometimes wonder if my coaches want to do that to me. But I'm happy to report that the National Junior College Athletic Association Division II district champs reside in your college, Henry Ford College. And as a victor in that district championship, they were given what we basketball fans call a ticket to the dance, which is the national championship tournament for the National Junior College Athletic Association Division II championship playoff. And that's in Danville, and it starts tomorrow, where the team plays at 11 o'clock in the morning. And I'm proud of Rochelle Taylor, the athletic director, Coach Shepard, and all of his young lads who have really fought through more adversity than I think most basketball teams do, and been successful. Sorry, now I promise I am done.
And you're sure? All right. Before we move on to the next action item, I did want to just make sure that the board is aware. If you're trying to get in your computers to look at the items that Mr. Sitkowski shares, you'll have to go through Zoom, and there's a chance we'll get feedback. So if possible, just look at the main screen so we don't get any feedback loops going. Next item, please.
This item is discussion items, winter 2021 Technology Investment Fund proposed projects. Board report 4586. Vice President Sadowski.
Yes, there are 3 projects presented in the packet tonight for the TIF. The TIF committee, they meet both in the fall and they meet in the winter term to go over various proposals for monies that relate to the technology account. Out of that allocation of $2 related to that piece, $1.75 of it per student per credit hour goes to the TIF fund. The other 50 cents goes to IT for IT upgrades. There is currently 3 projects that have been vetted, have gone through the process. I don't know if our chair of the committee is here to discuss it or not tonight, but they went through and vetted these back on March 5th, total of $144,000. They had 500 $21,000 in the account to deal with. So there is still a significant balance in there for when things return to semi-normalcy, that committee would be looking at some additional projects to meet the needs of the students. I'm pleased to look at that all of these directly relate to students. The one with chemistry in particular is dealing with one of 2 labs that are going to be renovated this summer. So that's a good positive sign for improving the chemistry program.
Mr. Chairman, you want to go to discussion item number B?
Yeah, next,
Lieutenant.
yeah, there would be fall 2021 tuition adjustment, President Cavalluna.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Trustees, I have discussed with you the need to evaluate our tuition rate, and I've forwarded to you many pieces of data and information along with a proposal. And as you're aware, and for some of the new trustees, the process for this with the college is that the administration proposes to the board one of the things that the board has sole authority to handle, and that is the tuition rate that we charge students. And then after that tuition rate analysis takes place, the college administration reports to the board a proposed budget. And our budget year goes from July 1 until June 30. So the first step to conducting our analysis of what the budget will look like for the next fiscal year, starting July 1, is to have a discussion about what tuition will be. And in concert with with your bylaws, if there were to be any changes in policies, and the board has historically seen tuition as a policy, and I think that's correct, then the discussion would take place at a board meeting now, and before any action would take place, you would have what's called a second reading at a subsequent board meeting. So I've asked, and the chair has allowed me to have an opportunity to discuss with you in one of your open meetings, being this meeting, a proposal to change and, to be candid, to increase the tuition rate at Henry Ford College. And in a minute, I'm going to invite my colleague, Mr. Satkowski, to talk about that. But I'll just say before I hand it over to Mr. Satkowski that a tuition increase is never something that a board or a president takes lightly, especially when the populace that we serve is particularly economically disadvantaged. But there are several reasons why it makes sense in my recommendation to you. It makes sense that I recommend that you do change the tuition rate. And one of the main reasons that I have reported to you and I would report to the public is that last year we did a no increase of tuition. We now have a forecasted shortfall for next fiscal year. And because of the need to either reduce the college's expenses or increase its revenues, the tuition rate is one that is obviously something that we should discuss, but it's a unique opportunity that we have now with the federal stimulus dollars to blunt the pain that a tuition increase would be visiting upon students. And we anticipate being able to continue to do that kind of blunting of the pain through at least several more terms. So as I mentioned, I invite Mr. Satkowski to give you a short presentation about why we believe this is the right path for the college and a comparison to what other institutions are doing on this question. And then, of course, after his presentation, Mr. Satkowski and I will be happy to answer any questions. But to reiterate, following the board's tradition and bylaws, this is a discussion item, and we ask for your feedback on this proposal now to decide whether we should bring it to a proposed vote if it were to carry that kind of support at your next meeting. Mr. Satkowski.
Thank you, President Cavalluna. Can everybody hear me? Do I need to talk louder or are we good?
We can
You're
hear you.
fine.
Okay, wonderful. Technology is wonderful. What first page that I have in front of you, and I will have Rhonda will help me with this succession here of the different slides. The first one is an update to one that we had talked about in our small groups. It shows our tuition for the winter that we're going through right now. It'll be the same for the summer for 2021, and then we get into fall and winter of 2022. The 4.2% that we're proposing here is the cap, is a cap that is being put in, that is being recommended by the governor's proposal. And as President Cavaluna has mentioned, that's something that's in the cards for the coming years. Just as a little history, I dealt with tuition caps for over 20 years when I was in the state of Ohio. The legislature there continuously did that. If you missed one year, you could not make it up the next year. It was basically year by year by year. So a little history there. What we're looking at, though, is the effect that the HERF's Care Part 2 and Part 3 with student funds, as well as institutional funds, would have on the net tuition rate for the students. And I'll use winter 2021 as our first example. In the yellow, it shows the amount that we've expended out of CARES 2, as President Cavaluna said earlier, the entire amount of 4.6 million and then some that we're working on. What that has effectively led to is a 45% decrease for in-district students, a 25% decrease for out-of-district students, to show what the net rate is versus the 101.50, which is our in-district rate, brings it down to a little over $55 at this point. Summer, we didn't have CARES. We used up all the CARES money, and the plan is, as of now, going through with the summer and providing a $22 tuition assistance for every credit hour for every student taking a summer class. That conservatively is about $616,000. So that's a direct effect on both in-district and out-of-district rates. And as you can see down below the yellow line there in blue, the effective in-district rate, instead of being 101.50, is 79.50 for this summer coming term, and 155 for the out-of-district. So again, that 616,000 is coming out of CARES institutional funding, not student funding. So now that I get to the proposal for fall 2021 and winter of 2022, we have put in under student grants from HERF CARES 3 student funds, $3.2 million for the fall and another $2.6 million going to the right for the winter, for a total of $5.8 million. That 5.8 is coming out of the $16.6 million of student monies that would come through in round 3. So that's a start of using that. Those numbers can go up depending on how well it materializes, but that's what we're conservatively putting in for right now, 5.88 million, and it can go beyond the winter of 2022. The next lines, there's 4 lines down there, $2,625,000. That is a $25 per credit hour assistance given to any student who takes a credit hour in the fall. Same thing for the winter, $25. And then there are 3 other programs in there, completion scholarship, special program assistance for tuition, potential past due AR assistance for tuition and fees. Those numbers are also coming out of institutional funds, not student funds. So our thoughts are, we can take, I didn't put a summary in there, those 4 items out of institutional takes $7.3 million out of our $16.6 million institutional allocation. Again, just a start at this point. So what you're seeing in the yellow lines, the yellow boxes for the fall and winter, let's take the fall first. All of that nets out to $6.158 million. The line above it, $6.9, almost $7 million in assistance, but the tuition increase is $820,000 for the fall. So that's where we get our net assistance number of 6.1 in the fall for students. What that equates to is a 55% reduction in our tuition rate for in-district students, making it $47 per credit hour, while the out-of-district would be reduced by 32%, down to $125.78. Winter, I won't go into the long discussion in winter, but the same thing takes place in winter. The funding that we put in place there for the winter yields, you can see a $54 net rate and a $133 net rate for the in-district and out-of-district students. Now, how does that compare on the next slide? And the next one that I have shows our history, and I hope you can see it better than I can on the screen because I'm looking at the hard copy. It shows that last year we were at a 0% tuition increase at the very bottom and 0 for out of district as well. We held the line on 101.50. What's significant about that is, you know, in coming years, like I said, you don't take the cap and use it. You can't bank it and then use it for later years. So in this case, where we're proposing this 4.2% increase, it's being significantly offset for at least this year with the tuition assistance programs. So just wanted to give you that history. And like I said, a net $43, you got to go back to right around 1994, 1995, when the in-district rate was $43, $47 to get to the net rate that we'd be looking at for the fall of this year. The next page that I just wanted to remind you of is it shows where the college is when it comes to our in-district tuition rate. This is sorted by in-district rate. You can see Jackson at $163 per credit hour, and Washtenaw at the bottom at 95, Oakland at 97, and Henry Ford at 101.50, to show that we're at the 26 out of 28 institutions when it comes to the gross tuition rate for this coming year. What's even more interesting is in the next page, the out of district 2021. That shows, and it's sorted by out of district, ignore the in district column. And you can see St. Clair is at 257 for out of district, and Wayne is at 118.30. Wayne has traditionally been low. I'll tell you why in a couple more slides, but you can see how much lower they are than Washtenaw, Southwest, West Shore, and Schoolcraft and us at 177 for out of district. But I want to make note that with the tuition assistance being provided that I put on the first slide, we would be at 120. Yeah, get that exact number again. We would be at 125.78. Still a little ahead of Wayne, but significantly below everybody else for the out of district rate. So I wanted to point that out. And in the winter, it's going to be in the 130s. The same thing takes place in the winter. Now, what does this do to our projected 2022 budget, which is on the next page? If you'll look at the middle column, which is projected FY 2022 budget, down to the last line, excess revenue, parentheses, expenditures, with a 0% tuition increase, which you can see right below that, 0% enrollment and no tuition increase in district, out of district, or out of state, we'll be looking at a deficit in the general fund of around $813,000 and change. With the 4.2%, on the next page, it shows, as I noted on that first page, it's about $1.6 million that the 4.2% provides, shows us with a budget surplus in fiscal year 22 of $843,000. Now, again, I'm looking at 22, 23, and 24. Just in the other one, we have some slight increases in enrollment projected over the coming years. And then you'll see some, and this is just what if tuition was increased in 23 and what if it was increased in 24 around 2%. It shows the effect that it has on the bottom line, but that's strictly for planning purposes at this juncture. But wanted to show in the middle column what the 4.2% swing would have for the general fund. And then as the last page, it's one that was put together before, and it significantly explains why certain districts have lower tuition than what lower tuition because of the revenue that's generated off of the property taxes. You'll see that Henry Ford shown there of our state equalized value of $3.4 billion. Our property tax revenue on 4 mills is a little over 13 million, which equals just over 3.2, almost $3.3 million per mill. And it's self-explanatory what happens at Oakland at $53 million per mill, Schoolcraft, 10 million, 3 times as much, Washtenaw, 13. And I always like to pick on Monroe County since that's where I'm at, where I pay taxes to the community college. They generate over $5.5 million on 1 mill, and Monroe is the 5th the size of what Henry Ford's enrollment is. So for comparative purposes, our reliance on tuition has been more so than we would like, but we still maintain a significant competitive low rate for our in-district and out-of-district students when we compare our rates to the other colleges, even in the fact that we're not blessed with a high property tax base for alternative funding from property tax. So I told the president I'd be brief. I know we've gone over this in our subcommittee meetings at one time, but this is the update that I have for you tonight with the good news that we did use all of the CARES 2 monies in the winter, over almost 3,300 applications. We still have 500 that we're looking at that Kevin Culler just gave me an update on, but that is it's better than what we had planned. The numbers we had looked at before for the winter and going into the fall for that CARES Part 2 was based upon what happened with CARES 1. We did not use all of CARES 1 in winter of 2020 last year when we first received the money. We had to go into the fall to give that money out to students last year. So we took the same approach this current winter, but we're pleasantly surprised that the funds were able to be used by students earlier and quicker to help them with their situations due to the COVID virus.
Trustee Petlicoff.
Okay, I'm gonna try to cover the gamut here as quickly as possible as also, but I'm not known for brevity. Okay, one is that I'm going to make the assumption, and I'm not going to be a Debbie Downer with this one, but that while we are realizing this supplemental funding from the federal government this year and maybe possibly into the next couple of years to help our students out financially, my assumption is every other community college is also going to be realizing these kinds of economic revenue streams as well, and probably going to be using them in a similar fashion. But we don't know for a fact how they are going to be utilizing those funds. We're looking at trying to offset while we right size ourselves. Most businesses have a plan every year for inflation. We have taken a position as a community college, and I know it's a little bit unique, that our customers, which are our students, are challenged in so many ways that we have always had a philosophical stand of not necessarily following that inflation rate increase on a yearly basis. But I also understand that the political climate now has changed to the point where we could potentially be looking at two things. One, a continued trend towards capping tuition increases, which would inhibit our ability if we were to find ourselves in the future when we do not have these additional funds that we are realizing today because of the pandemic, that we would then find ourselves in tough economic times with no way out. That we could fix this in a less dramatic way than we would like. We've in the past have done these jumps of tuition and then let things slide for a while in the hopes that we wouldn't have to pass along the cost. So that's one. The other one I see is that the potential, but we don't have it yet at the table, of free community college. But that seems like a realistic potential in the near future, given the current political administration in the federal government. And that would also help offset any tuition increases that we would see. It would more be fed through the federal government's helping our students rather than them having to bear the cost of our inflation increases that we would need to run the college. I think we've done a very good job at, given the very tight property tax layout that we have in Dearborn. We're unique. We are a very small community who wanted to be able to do something different than the surrounding community colleges, because by law, everybody has to belong to a community college. We wanted to be able to support our own. And by doing that, we have had so many unique programs that no other community college has been able to realize by having a P14 district. But it comes at a cost financially to us and to our community that voted many years ago to have a community college within its own borders. So I understand that we have a responsibility to try to provide a economically feasible plan that supports the longevity of the college, but also helps make sure that all of our students are able to access that education as well. And I see that we will probably have to balance those needs by moving forward with this. So that's my 2 cents worth on what I see as a need when we have in the past struggled with the question of what's too much in the way of tuition. But right now, if we can offset it, my only question would be, if we do this now, and I would beg to say that at any given time as a board, we could always say, hey, look, we're killing our students with the tuition down the road. We can take it back. We don't have to say, we have that opportunity to say, we can lower it again as well. We're not, vetted to this particular increase for life. But that being said, my only concern would be everybody gets used to this $47 or whatever a credit for the first year. And then the following year, we don't have this kind of opportunity to help with the tuition expense. And they're going to be hit with a bill that they weren't prepared for. So if we were to move forward with this, I would want to make sure that any new students coming in would have a clear understanding, if they're going to be here for more than a year, that they would understand the potential costs that could be coming forward after we run out of the federal money to help offset the tuition rates right now, because they're going to have a shock when it reverts back to the tuition that we have intended, if there isn't some other avenue to help pay for that.
Trustee Moses.
Well, the first thing that I want to mention, maybe to respond to Trustee Petlicoff's comment about tuition increases or decreases. I don't think in the history of our college, we have decreased tuition. So just making
but
that out
it's-
there. It is an option, but
It's an option.
It's the ratchet
once,
effect, it
once
goes one
we,
way.
once you go up, I don't know of a wave going down. However, looking at the rate of inflation and seeing the college at times not increasing tuition or not staying the course of zero increases for a few years, and then we have a huge uptick. I think we need to just continue on this path and perhaps be able to just tie ourselves to the rate of inflation. Just a thought for the future, because those increases are obviously are not hurting students now, but in a year or two, they will. And they might be blocking students from entering community college or weighing options, especially for out-of-district students, which make the majority of our students, reconsider attending the college. So we have to be very careful of that. And then the other huge assumption that we're making is that community college might be free in a few years. And that's a huge assumption. And we need to put more thought into that to make sure that it's good timing, so you will, if in case the federal government will say that they will cover the tuition fees. Those are the two points that I have. I have a question about what happens now in a year after those savings are being made. Are we gonna be posting tuition at those? Are we expecting more aid from the federal government, do you think, President Cavaluna?
So that I make sure I understand, the question is, in a year from now, what is my anticipation of what will happen with the tuition rate
Are we
and the federal
expecting more
stimulus?
aid than the one that we already received?
I see nothing in the Congress that shows there's another direct aid like what we just saw with the American Rescue Plan. So this $16.6 million in the American Rescue Plan that will go towards students, and then on top of that, the several $1 million that Mr. Setkowski noted for the institutional piece of the American Rescue Plan. And just so you're aware, when I say institutional piece, remember that these federal laws break out the funding, at least for community colleges and universities, into two buckets, one for students, one for the institution. And we've taken the pretty aggressive stance to say, certainly all the student money should go to students and get it to the people who need it the most quickly. But why not even give some of that that's devoted to the institution and funnel that to the students? But once that's up, and we even what the model that Mr. Setkowski outlined doesn't take us to where the tank is empty on those two buckets yet on the American Rescue Plan. But once that is up, to be candid with you, Trustee Moses, I don't anticipate a similar round of funding.
Okay.
And so I think what I understood your question to be is won't the tuition snap up in what students feel? And that's true. And that's true. But I would just say, if you look at the history that students at Henry Ford College have seen in increases when there was no American Rescue Plan, no CARES 2. Just for the benefit of the audience, 2008 rates went up 8.3%. 2009, it went 0. to your point about what you just made, trustee Moses. Then 2010, up 7.7%. Then 2011, up 7.1%. Then 2012, 0. Then 2013, 9.3%. Then 2014, 6.1%. Then 2015, 0. That trend continues. And so what I'm saying is, it is true to say, hey, you're saying, President Cavaluna, that these students won't feel the pain as much of a 4.2% increase because of this offset. That's true. And that when that kind of offset goes away, it'll be there. But my point to you is Henry Ford College has been here 80 years, and just in the last 15 years, students have endured much worse with no blunting of it. So this is not unprecedented, is my point. Will it be a potential shock that we need to get students to be aware of? Absolutely. But is it unprecedented and harsh? No one said that, but if I were in your seats, I'd say, isn't this a little bit harsh? And maybe we need to find a way to take the benefit and wean it off rather than make it so harsh. But I would just say it's not something that our students have never faced. In fact, they've faced much higher tuition increases.
Trustee McDonald.
A couple things I want to add. The one thing that always strikes me is in district tuition, we are 26 out of 28. And out of districts, 23 out of 28. So our rates, our costs have been comparable or even really low compared to other colleges. But I just want to make a note that competitiveness is not directly tied or only tied to the price, but it also includes the value that you're getting, which I think Henry Ford is an exceptional value. It's the offering that we offer. It's wraparound service that we give to students for support. So all of these other things, I just think that everyone should also keep into consideration because they cost money, but they're value to our students and especially our students that are most in need. So I think that's important. And as Trustee Petchlokoff said, we have to balance needs, but we not only balance the needs of the students, but we balance the needs of the institution, of the community in general, because we are a huge part of this community, the needs of our future workforce. So there's a lot of things that need to be taken into consideration. And again, with our low tax base, we have to make up that revenue somehow. And so there's just a lot of things to comprehend, or to understand, but I just really think that don't forget the value that we offer to our community, to our students, to our residents. And I just think that's an important piece that you don't want to lose sight of.
Thank you. Trustee Watts?
I'm sure that this was mentioned before, but can you remind us, what was the percentage of our students who are eligible for Pell Grant?
Yes, trustee Watts, that the last time I assessed that was a little bit more than half a year ago. And that data went back to the previous FAFSA application, but I believe it was 52%.
56.
What do you have, Mr. Satkowski?
That's pretty accurate. I was thinking somewhere near to 56%, but yes.
It's more than half, but not more than 60%.
Right.
And
Correct.
that's getting the full Pell Grant or just mix of?
No, I
that
think
one?
it's any eligibility whatsoever of Pell.
I just thought of one more thing that I
Yes.
want to add. I have been involved, not so much in the last couple of years, but for a long time with scholarships, and the scholarships that are offering. For a long time, they were, there was a lot of them going unclaimed and no applications for them. That issue has really been a focus. And I think that our students are getting a lot of more scholarship opportunities. They're aware of them, they're applying for them. So that makes a difference. And I also do believe that we are in a time, and this is nationally and around the world with the pandemic and everything, there's a lot of changes coming. And I do believe that free college is going to come. I really do. We've been doing it for years. And we've been offering those services to our students in particular and our community in particular. And I have no doubt in my mind, I've been proven wrong before though, but I really think that that's a trend that we're going to see.
Trustee Barry?
Heard the words free college a couple times tonight. I know once the word free comes up, you have to read the fine line. We're just assuming that we're going to participate no matter what the federal government throws at us, that this is free college, but what are they going to want in return? What kind of parameters are going to put the college under? Just a comment here. You know what, over the past decade and a half, I've heard the words access to higher education, access to community college. I heard tonight that, we serve a very economically disadvantaged population, students population. The balance, we have to find the right balance. There's no doubt in my mind, completely agree with Trustee Petrikov and Trustee McDonald just mentioned earlier that we do provide a good value. But at the same time, why limit? If we're gonna say access, why limit anybody? Why limit that single mom that wants to go to college and does not qualify for financial aid? And, I've talked to somebody just as recent as a year ago and said, hey, just apply. It's like, just didn't have the money. Well, the scholarships there and, just trying to push them is just, I know they didn't do anything. Speaking of balance, we just increased the budget for our marketing team. And here we are that a month from now, we're going to go out there and say, we're going to raise tuition during a global pandemic. What does that do to the reputation of Henry Ford College? We're trying to bring students in, spending a lot of money trying to recruit students to come to Henry Ford College, but maybe a month from now, the headlines will read the next day that, by the way, during global pandemic, Henry Ford College. With all due respect, Mr. Sutkowski, and I know you're the messenger. Sutkowski, there's no doubt in my mind for the past decade, you've been one of the greatest things that happened to this college. I mean that. But when we sit there and say, where we're stand in district, out of district, what have you, I mean, if we want to say we want more people come into Henry Ford College, more people have access to higher education, why get into that game? With all due respect, it is a game that, oh, by the way, so-and-so just raised their rates, it's our turn. Why don't we try to turn this thing around a little bit and maybe take the lead on it? I understand the part about taxes, completely understand it. There's nothing else we can do. I mean, we've talked about other options, but I'm really, really concerned about the reputation of the college a month from now if the headlines were about to say that we're raising tuition. No question, just want to make those comments.
Trustee Barry?
Yes.
Hopefully, the headline will be, but we are utilizing monies to offset that college increase.
I get that part. I get that part. Well, let's
we
fast
can-
forward.
It's how we message it that
Yeah,
we.
you're correct. You're correct. You're not wrong there. Well, once we get to 2023 and 2024, what happens when you raise, supply and demand, when you raise the price of education at Henry Ford College, what happens to enrollment? How much of that, we didn't even look into that. How much of that $1.6 million gets eaten up? Because, maybe 100 students didn't come to the college. I guess that's a discussion to be continued.
All good points. A few items that I would add would echo some of the things that were said about value. Are we offering a good value to our students? Trustee Barry, to what you're saying, I would put it like this, though we're an educational institution, we're a business. And we need to find a way to make sure that the revenue is a little bit higher than the expenses at the end of the day. Now, expenses can be cut, but that means programs need to be cut. Revenue can be increased. The only way we can the easier increase is probably through tuition than going back to our taxpayers. And the other thing is, while Mr. Sikowski said about an 800,000, if I remember the number right, $800,000 shortfall if we did nothing. So that, and then if we did a 4% increase, it would take us to an 800,000 windfall. So that tells me about a 2% would put us back to break even. Is that about right, Mr. Sikowski?
Very good. Yes.
Okay.
that's-
Okay. And I would think in normal times, we'd probably look more that way, but free college is not free. We all need to recognize that one. Maybe the students don't look at it that way. They just say, well, it's free, but we all know that it's on everybody's back.
Thank you very much.
And it's on our back because the state will probably cap what we can do in future tuition increases. So Mr. Sikowski, the question I would have for you is, with your years dealing with this previously, how often, if you had had a choice, would your college institutions want to increase tuition greater than what the state was allowing you to do in the past? Yes.
South of the border here, yes, a couple of times. That's absolutely true. And we tried, and I know there was the CFO at the time tried to do it uniquely because credit hours 13, 14, 15, and 16 were free at University of Toledo. So they did no increase in the rate, but tried to get students to pay for 13, 14, 15, and 16. And the state said, no, that is doing a tuition increase indirectly by charging for credit hours. So yes, there were instances when the institution lagged and then tried to make it up the next year, and it didn't happen. Probably out of the 7 years I was there, and I wasn't budget director there at the time or in finance. I was on the academic side, so I was a Dr. Nealon cohort there, if you will, on the academic side. But the issue was there to keep tuition low and try to make it up in future years. But one of the lessons that somebody mentioned earlier is that low cost is not necessarily the driver in a lot of cases. You got to take into consideration the quality, the programs, and what else you're offering. So in a number of times that was a mistake, and it couldn't be brought back up. The history in Ohio, like I said, is this has been going on for at least 20 years. There were a few years there where there was zero that was mandated, and colleges had to make it up by technology fees and other kind of fees that were not capped by the tuition. But some of it was done that way. So you may not have seen tuition increase, but you saw other fees that were going up. So to make a long story short, keep it steady, stay away from those high increases like President Cavalluna mentioned before, and systemically look at it in smaller pieces. That's why we know we did zero last year. That was fine. We worked through that, but it'll catch up to us should the feds and the state put those caps into effect, and you're going to be stuck at that particular point in time. And that's one of the things, since we are so reliant upon tuition and not as reliant upon property tax and our third-legged stool, state appropriations, it's really the only area that we have we have some control and consistency over.
And I would mention then that by doing the increase now by the proposed percentage, in the sports world, I would say it's getting a chance to play from ahead. Give yourself a chance to rest some starters, be ready for things versus trying to make a furious comeback. And in this case, if we were being capped, there's a chance the only way we could come back would be to cut. And it's one thing to cut because there's not a need, right? If there's just something that's no longer needed. But it would be tougher if we were having to cut things that we're still in agreement need to be moved around. Yes, trustee Petlicoff.
And I'd like to say, when it comes to tuition as the driver, we get a lot of students out of district that could be going to Wayne County Community College, which has the lowest in-district tuition rate for around here. And yet we attract those students to pay our higher because of the value we offer, the programs we offer, the quality we offer. So I wouldn't say that it's terminal when you have a tuition rate that potentially looks a little bit higher than what some other community college in the neighboring areas are charging. But quite frankly, we've already proven that we can bring students in and we can compete with those tuitions that are lower, and there's not very many, and still attract. So, and we're not looking at a huge, percentage increase. And hopefully we can then maintain a steady lower, as trustee Mosep said, a steady inflation rate scenario rather than the ups and downs that are dramatic.
Trustee McDonald?
Yeah, I absolutely understand where trustee Barry is coming from, because he and I, prior to being on the board, we went and fought Lansing over and over again, and they were notorious for giving with the right hand and taking away from the left, and it was a game. But this is different because I do see that we are doing what we can to give the money back while we have it to the students. And I agree with trustee Mosep, if we could, and trustee Petlicoff, if we could just maintain smaller increases, it would be less a shock to the system for our students. But while we're able to give them the funds back, I think that we, pardon me, should take the initiative to do that, to give them some support.
Trustee Watts?
So I think in the past month and a half, I've met with many people and I've spoken to them about Henry Ford College. And I think just going back to it, it's the unknown. It's the not knowing that there's the Michigan Reconnect. And I think part of it is also reaching out and saying, trustee Barry, you had said to that mom who maybe has never had an opportunity to go to community college because of circumstances that life throws at you, knowing that if you've never been able or had the opportunity or the finances, that it's free if you're 25 and over. So I think part of it also is trying to reconnect to those potential students and know that you have a home where you, in a sense, an academic home where you feel supported. Because it is overwhelming, especially if you're a first-time college student, not knowing where to start. So to that extent, I say that Henry Ford College has those support systems put in place. I mean, you can get the student there, but if you don't hear your students and you don't hear the feedback that they're giving you in terms of what they need support, tuition, it is on everyone's mind, but knowing that they're going to go there and they're going to be successful, I think that's where Henry Ford College comes into play for those potential students. Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments on this item? Trustee McDonald?
Just real quick, trustee Watts talked about the Michigan Reconnect. There's also Future for Frontliners, and there's just a multitude of programs that a lot of people might be able to fit in that would really help them offset the cost of college. So you've got to do some homework, but I think we need to get better at, and I know we're working on it, but putting that information out. There's a lot of opportunities out there that could help a multitude of people, but they need to know that they're there and they need to do a little homework themselves. Pardon me.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
If I might, I just make a comment in response to your question. I agree with you had asked Mr. Setkowski, hey, what's your experience with when schools face the caps? What are successful strategies in dealing with that? And Mr. Setkowski is completely right. in his experience in Ohio, but I would offer for the board my experience watching universities deal with this in Michigan, because in Michigan, universities have dealt with this for certainly more than 10 years and maybe even more than 20 years. It's been not something community colleges have ever faced. In fact, I don't believe there's ever been serious consideration of tuition caps for community colleges until this current budget proposal from this current governor. And it is directly linked to the free college programs that Trustee McDonald just mentioned. So, and Michigan isn't breaking ground here. These free college programs have been scattered throughout the nation. Was one in Tennessee. Each time they come with, Trustee Barry's correct question, what do they expect? And they usually expect increased services, and they usually cap the cost that the institution can charge for it, for two reasons. One, they know that the type of student who they draw with free college is a non-traditional student that needs more support mechanisms, to Trustee Watts's comment. And to the person you mentioned, Trustee Barry, who was a mother getting back in, if that person is 25 years or older, they will have free college under the governor's proposal, but that person will have very likely more support needs as a result of the non-traditional status that person is under, and that will cost more. So institutions will likely try to catch up with that cost by increasing tuition, and the governments, whether it's Tennessee or Michigan, try to put a cap on that cost. So that is the reason why I'm telling you I believe this is coming, is because it's existed elsewhere. And to directly answer your question, Mr. Chairman, if a cap comes into play, the typical penalty for violating that cap, and we know this from what the legislature in this state has done to universities, is to eliminate the state funding. Not just for the free college program, the state funding. And for reference, our operating budget is about $90 million. The state funding is about $25 million. It's simply not possible to violate a cap once you see a cap. For an institution like ours, where you're almost 30% of your revenue comes from the state, that is not a fight you can take on and win. So if you see the cap coming, even if you're not really sure it's going to come, this is why I'm telling you we should get in position to comply, because it's not a fight we can win.
And you can't do it a month before, because I know that there were universities that tried it before when they saw the cap coming down in and they know that's what you're trying to do, is to jump in front of them. So we have to start having this conversation now before any of this is on the table in front of us.
I don't make light of it. I know it's not a fun thing to discuss. And the single moms and the non-traditional students, the people who are living really tough lives and still trying to eke out an existence in Henry Ford College are the ones that all of us are on this board or an employee of this board for. And I don't come to this conclusion lightly. And I recognize it's very difficult for you all, which is why I appreciate you all giving it due consideration. And that's all, of course, I can ask for.
Trustee Moses.
I just have one comment, something when we voted for the last tuition increase. I mentioned this and I'd like to mention it again, but because I think it's very important. When we talk about covering shortfalls, I think everybody needs to bind together and share the sacrifice. And we should not have the students are the only ones who are going to be taking this on. So I do understand that the students will have a break this year with, as was described, that they will have tuition assistance, but they will not be in a year or so. So I would like to see a mix of different things as far as covering this whole, instead of just straight up tuition increase. So whether it's looking at different cuts, and I know this is something that is very, very hurtful to say, I would say, during a pandemic, but it's worth looking at and blending that with a tuition increase that is close to the inflation rate that we're looking at right now.
All right. President Cataluna, anything else that you need from us?
No.
All
Thank you.
right. Next item, please.
Next item is action items, citizen participation. Any member of the public who wishes to submit a written request to provide a public statement during a public comment portion of the board meeting will provide the electronic request to Adel Mozub, MAADEL, at hfcc.edu by 7:10 on April 19th, 2021. The public comment emails will be read by a designated board member, so the comment might be heard by those electronically attending this meeting or the meeting. The board rules for the content and the length of the public statements remain as if the meeting were held in person, or we are in person right now. As of even right now, I did not receive any public comments, Chair Thor.
Okay. Next item then.
Next item, okay, special consideration of an item. Are there any action items on this agenda, on this agenda which board members or the president wish to discuss and vote on separately? If there are, we will exclude them from the action below.
Besides number 8 not being an item we're going to vote on, is there anything else?
All right.
All right, we can move on to the recommended
Then
action.
move to approve action items 1 through 9 with the exception of 8 as recommended in this agenda.
So moved?
Support.
We've got a motion by trustee McDonald, support by trustee Barry. Any discussion on any of these items then? Hearing none. All in favor of the recommended action signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. Next item.
Can I just state,
Yes.
I'd like to welcome from the foundation board, the nominee.
Please do.
State Representative Tyrone Carter, who will be joining us on the foundation. From his bio, sounds like a great addition to the board.
We're happy to have Representative Carter on our foundation board.
I just want to add to that, anyone that has not had the pleasure of hearing him speak, you're missing
a
out
wonderful
because he is
speaker.
inspirational. He has done a lot for the college already, and I am thrilled to have him as part of the board. So if he's out there somewhere, welcome Representative Carter.
And President Cataluna, you had also wanted to speak to something on item 7.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe, although not here in person, watching us from the comfort of some place with a computer, hopefully they're home, but certainly someplace with a computer, I'm excited and happy to welcome my new teammates, and I'll just say their name for those that I believe are watching. Nicholas Barron, our math instructor. I'm excited to welcome Nicholas. Heather Kana, a biology instructor. Welcome aboard, Heather. Jessica Mahoney, a biology instructor. Welcome to the team, Jessica. Jermaine Reese, a criminal justice instructor. And Eng Ho Michael Sin, a mathematics instructor. I also want to take an opportunity to say hello and welcome to Sarah Meyer, who is an e-learning designer. You all, I hope, are about to take one of the most exciting and rewarding steps in your professional career, and that is working at Henry Ford College to change futures through education. And I stand ready to support you in any way I can. Please reach out to me if I can help you, and welcome aboard. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Trustee Barry.
I just wanted to add some of the comments regarding State Rep Carter. I met him about probably over 10 years ago. I can tell you that the 6th district is well represented. What I know about Mr. Carter is that he's so involved in his community. He does so much for the youth. He's always a phone call away. I've always reached out to him when I knew there was a student in the area that needed mentoring or needed a little help. So it's a big addition to the foundation board. So welcome aboard, Tyrone Carter.
All right. Moving on then to our next item.
Board of Trustees business, acknowledgement of correspondence.
All right, seeing none, moving to the next item.
Board committee reports.
I don't believe we had any college committee reports. All right, next item.
Request for information and future agenda items.
Trustee McDonald.
Yeah, there is something that it just keeps hitting my radar over and over, like the last 6 months. I keep encountering information on biotech. And it's saying that that is the next generation of fields that is going to explode, not only in this country, but, around the world. So, my first exposure was, we've heard about messenger RNA, which was the technology, part of the technology that was used to create the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine. And then you also have CRISPR, which has tremendous health applications, and they're really fascinating as you delve into it a little deeper. But there's also possibility of cancer treatments. There has been some success, minuscule, but they're still working on it, on cures for diseases like sickle cell anemia. There are some definitely ethical questions and concerns, but from what I've read, that can be considered. Anyway, we are future driven. So my thought is just, I am a layperson when it comes to this. I have, some information and some knowledge of biology, but I would like to see our professionals that we've hired just give us a presentation on what the college offers in this field. If there's a way that maybe where the science is heading, if there's a viable opportunity for HFC to maybe lead in the area. It's just like I said, it's been on my radar, and I wanted to just push it out there, see what kind of information we can get, and maybe this would be a field that we can lead, because we are future driven, and I think that it's important for us to be on the cusp if we're able to. And I understand that we're in the middle of a COVID crisis, so I'm not looking, this is not, immediate priority. There's a lot of things on people's plate, but I would like, it's not overly time sensitive, but I would like to throw it on somebody else's radar besides mine.
Trustee McDonald, I would offer to expand on what you're saying. And we've talked about it from the P12 side about the careers these kids are going to go into aren't even there yet.
Absolutely.
So besides biotech, what I would say is, could we have the college give us presentations about the future fields that we're already starting to try to prepare for through the classical areas of study? President Cavaluna, does that give you an idea?
Yeah, I'm actually taking notes for my team right now. This actually might be, Mr. Chairman, something we might want to look at a retreat. But certainly I will take this to my team and come back with ideas of a presentation for biotech and a presentation for cutting edge curricula that try to answer the question of the jobs for tomorrow for today's students.
Thanks. Any other, Trustee Watts?
I would like to expand that and also see in the current COVID market that we have right now, the shortages of fields, and to see how HFC might be able to shore up the demand in certain areas. I mean, I know teaching, but also kind of take a couple steps back and see what other fields are they having a hard time trying to find applications for.
And I know nursing has been one program we've spoken about in the past, that we can turn nursing around a lot quicker than a four-year institution can.
Yeah.
So it's a very good item. Trustee Barry.
President Cavaluna, I'd like to see a report in the process, once the college decides to fill a position, a full-time faculty position, what is the process from posting? What do we go through all the way till we get here tonight where we approve somebody?
Thank you, Trustee Barry, and I want to just say thank you as my teammate for giving me a heads up that you wanted to ask this question, because it gives me a great opportunity to be able to give you this on the spot. If you're willing, I've asked my colleague, Dr. Lori Gonko, Vice President of HR and Strategy, to be able to make a presentation today that answers that question. And of course, Trustee Barry, we weren't able to talk at length about your request, but if this does answer it, great. And if it doesn't, we can come back and do more.
Of course, thank you.
So through the magic of television.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. So the process that I'm going to describe to you is documented in our College Search Committee handbook, and I'm happy to provide that to you should you want to see more information after I outline the steps here this evening. And of course, I'll also add that this entire process right now with posting up through interviewing is taking place in an online environment via Microsoft Teams since the beginning of COVID. The posting process itself begins at the cabinet level with cabinet approval. Once positions are approved, the applicable academic department forms what we call a search committee. And in accordance with our full-time faculty contract, the faculty maintain ownership of that committee formation. So the number of faculty that are represented on each search committee really varies by department. We've recently had some search committees with up to 10 members, for example, and some with as small as 4. Some of that is dictated by the size of the department that's engaged in the hiring and the number of faculty that make up that department. From there, faculty also determine if they want to have department administration, that is the associate deans, involved in the initial search process. And most recent search committees have chosen that option. So once the committee composition is determined, HR works with the committee to facilitate the entire search process. And this begins with a kickoff meeting in which HR does a few key things. One, of course, they describe just the process logistics, how we're going to go through all of this. 2, they review and edit the job description that's going to be used for the posting. So the search committee is involved even before a posting goes up. And then 3, they review the committee responsibilities, which include, of course, responsibility to conduct a fair and equitable search and maintain confidentiality throughout the entire process. Once the search committee agrees on the language for the job posting, what we call a requisition is entered into our online system, and the positions are posted and advertised. Advertising occurs through a number of different sources, including our college website, our college social media, and then on external websites as well, such as higheredjobs.com, LinkedIn, and then also throughout our community to directly to our partners with organizations like Access, for example. And back to those external websites, an additional benefit of posting on something like Higher Ed Jobs is that we use them for something called a diversity boost, which sends approximately 500,000 emails is what they claim to active and passive job seekers who have been self-identified on that Higher Ed Jobs website as a diverse candidate who's looking for employment. Once the posting is live and the applicant pool is growing, the search committee members keep working behind the scenes, and they undergo online training for unconscious bias. And this training is designed to expose our search committee members to their implicit or their unconscious biases, and then also provide tools to help them kind of mitigate those and adjust those automatic patterns of thinking that we tend to fall into. The HR team, of course, monitors the applicant pools up to the application deadline. And if the pool is determined to be a little bit, I guess, shallow at that deadline, then we will extend it accordingly. And a non-diverse pool might result in re-advertising, reposting, going kind of back to the drawing board and seeing where we could make some improvements to the process. Once that applicant pool is finalized, HR will only remove those from the process who do not meet the minimum qualifications that were set for the job according to that public posting. All other applications and resumes are provided to the search committee for consideration. And I'll also mention that in accordance with one of the earlier questions, for full-time faculty positions, any senior adjuncts who are qualified for the position are given an interview if they should apply for the position. HR reports on diversity at 2 or 3 different points within the search process to keep doing that check to make sure as we move along that we have a diverse pool. Of course, standardization and documentation are critical components of having a fair and an equitable search. And so the search committees decide from that pool who they want to interview based upon matrices that are used throughout the process. The matrices are developed based upon, again, those qualifications that were in the public job posting. So each matrix then outlines a set of criteria that the committee members score against. And the process, again, begins with the evaluation of the actual resumes from the applicant pool. The top candidates, based on those resume scores, are provided an invitation to interview. And then during that interview process, we'll use another matrix to score the interviews. Again, at this point in the process, we do another one of those diversity checks in order to ensure that the composition of the interview pool is as diverse as the original applicant pool. And if all is well on that front, then those first interviews begin. After the interview process, the matrices are scored, they're discussed by the committees, and top candidates are then moved forward based on highest scores and committee consensus. I'll also add too that all faculty interviews have a teaching demonstration component that's also scored and considered as part of that overall process. Once we have our top candidates from the first round interviews that are sent forward, they do a second interview with the applicable dean of the area of the college that's doing the hiring, and then also with our Vice President of Academic Affairs, Dr. Michael Nealon. The final candidates then from that process are recommended to you, the board, on your monthly agenda, as we saw here this evening. So that's the broad overview of our process from start to finish, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great, that's a lot of good information. The only question I have when you say top candidates, I know it probably depends on position, but just guess to me, how many people, how many applicants do we actually interview? It's through the first round.
I think it really depends on the number of people that we have in the original applicant pool. I believe that you've been provided with a report on a monthly basis that outlines the number of people that we start with and then the number of people that actually go through that process. I would say it could be anywhere from 5 to 10 who are interviewed for that first round.
Great, thank you very much. That was the quickest request for information I ever saw.
Quickest turnaround, yeah.
Well, I'll just say, Trustee Barry, it is the most helpful thing a trustee can do to give me a heads up, because
Yeah.
I have at my disposal the best group of vice presidents in the country to help answer any of these questions. And I really greatly appreciate any trustee asking a question ahead of time so I can not only let the trustee, like you, Trustee Barry, have the answer, but also it gives me an opportunity to show you an interaction with, as a group, some of the vice presidents. So thank you for the question.
Yeah, of
Trustee
course,
Barry.
of course. I know where I can go to get the information. I mean, we know it's there, we get the reports, but more important, I want it to be out there. I'm sure we all get the same phone calls that I didn't know about this job, I didn't, what happened, I applied, I didn't hear from any, well, here's the process. If next time I get a phone call, just refer them to this meeting, and if they have any questions, we'll just have them follow up with you. Thank you.
President Cavallin, I didn't give you a heads up on this one. It's going to be hard hitting. So can we bring back students to give us some reports? I'm sure that we had canceled it due to COVID and just the ease of getting people involved, but could we bring them back for like commendations?
Yeah, and I watch all the P12 meetings. If we can't get them here physically, we can do them.
Well, I was thinking about it after our last meeting that it's time to bring them back, I think, at that level too. But this is the first chance I had to ask you.
Yes. The answer is yes.
Thanks. Next item, please.
Board member commentary.
Trustee Petlicoff.
I'd just like to remind everybody, again, we do this at every meeting, that the Ford Performing and Community Arts Building is still having a COVID vaccination clinic. And currently they are looking for April is, amongst many things, is volunteer month. And they are looking for volunteers to do, not to jab anybody, sorry, you don't get that pleasure, but to host people in through the doors and to data input information, and they will train you to do that particular job. And you can volunteer however much time you have available to help support the vaccine clinic. And if you're 18 and older, they will also vaccinate you if you haven't already gotten your vaccination while you're there. So I just wanted to put that out there that I would really encourage our students. Maybe our basketball team would like to be prepared to go down to a national event and feel safe. So that's just saying, it's still ongoing through, definitely through the end of April, and they may need you at any time after that as well.
Thank you. Trustee Moses?
Yeah, I'd like, as part of commendations, to congratulate HFC Hawk Asila Al-Mudalla, who was named this year's MCCA Wrestler of the Year. So congratulations to him, and he's going to nationals. So that's great accomplishment for the college.
Any others? The one that I would add is to all of our students and staff, good luck with finals.
Yeah.
You're going to be having finals before we meet again. Did you have an additional item, President Cavallino?
Yeah, Vice President Satkowski reminded me of something that I wanted to tell you because it's something his team's worked on really hard, and it's something I wanted you to be aware of. Trustee Moses asked about potential future funding for colleges, and I answered that I didn't see that on the horizon. The one exception to that, and I still stand by my answer, but you've heard that the Congress is debating whether to do a large infrastructure bill, and that there may be some potential for local forms of government, whether it be college, cities, school districts, to take part in that. And right at the same time, it's now widely reported that the House of Representatives has decided that they are going to do away with the ban on earmarks in federal spending bills. You'll recall that around the time President Obama was elected, the Congress decided there will be no more earmarks, meaning direct funding for unique projects in congressional districts as a way to gather political support for a larger spending package. That was done away with in 2008, I believe. It seems clear now that the Congress is going to allow those now. So clear that congresspersons have begun asking constituents for proposals of up to a couple $1 million, and the Congress seems like they're going to let each congressional seat propose up to 10 projects. Our congressional representative is, of course, Debbie Dingell, and her office has developed several different types of forms to propose projects. And I wanted to report to you that Mr. Satkowski and myself and a couple of his staff members have found out about this late, asked for an extension, received it, and put in a couple requests. I can't give much details about them now, but I just want you to know, Mr. Satkowski brought to my attention, because I think that may have been part of what my answer should have been to you, Trustee Moses.
Sure.
No promises on any of that, but if you hear about, hey, they're doing earmarks in Congress, and hey, Congress people are asking for proposals, know that HFC's got a couple in the pipeline, and I'll report more back when I hear more.
Trustee McDonald?
Yeah, quick question. Do you know that if Superintendent Maleko is aware of that too, and if by chance he's made any proposals?
I don't know that.
Okay.
It happened so quickly, and I will say to you, we had to ask for more time.
Okay.
So I was surprised.
When was that deadline?
The deadline was, I think, a week ago from last Friday.
That was
Because-
the original
Yeah,
deadline? or the
because our
extended-
extension
Okay.
was 4 days ago, Trustee
Okay.
McDonald.
Okay.
So kind of a done deal.
Yeah.
But I'll talk to Dr. Maleko, and I will ask him if he knew anything about it. I will tell you, one of the hardest things about serving a board that has Dr. Maleko as the chief executive is I'm second fiddle more often than not. So I would expect that he's He'll tell me, yeah, I had 4 proposals in Cataluna. What's wrong with you?
And he got him in on time.
Yeah. I don't know that. I'm just kind of making a bad joke, but I will talk with Dr. Maliko.
Next items, future meeting dates. Monday, May 10th, 2021, P to 12 Board of Education meeting, 7 PM at the Administrative Service Center in the Frank Franchi Boardroom, following the guidelines of the state law and virtually available for viewing on YouTube, on the YouTube channel for the district, as well as on the Facebook page, cable channel, Comcast, Dearborn Channel 19 and WOW Channel 15. Monday, May 17th, 2021, HFC meet, 7 PM here at the Dearborn Schools Administrative Center, 18700 Audit Dearborn in the Frank Franchi Boardroom, following the guidelines of the state law and via Zoom video conference. Check online at hfcc.edu/board-meeting-schedule. Wednesday, May 19th, 2021, 5:30 PM, HFC Financial Stability Ad Hoc Committee meeting via Zoom conference. Also check online at the hfcc.edu/board-meeting-schedule.
Two quick things before we move to the next item. For our next scheduled college meeting on the 17th, is everyone comfortable with the way we did this one tonight and that we should stick with it?
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to confirm that everyone was comfortable with that one. The other thing that we've been talking about is about a board retreat. And I've been busy with things. I apologize, I want to get it on the books. So we're looking at 2 possible dates in July. They're both Friday evenings, July 16 and July 23rd. We wanted to get feedback to see which one might be better for the board. Now, for Trustee Watts, I'm guessing the 16th is a little bit preferred to the 23rd based on your schedule. I think both of them are fine for me. And this is a
23rd might
Friday
be-
evening.
23rd might,
The 16th and the 23rd.
oh, actually, it's way after.
Does
No.
one work better than
No,
the other for you?
16th might work better for me, but 23rd is fine too.
So 16th probably works better for trustees Moses and Watts. Trustee Barry, any difference?
I mean, either one works for me, but 16.
Trustee Ambrosio, any?
The 23rd would work better for me.
Okay. Trustee McDonald?
I have no preference, but there's a chance that could change. We had discussed that. so-
Okay. I think either one works for me. So since it seems the 16th works better for 2 than for 1, that the 23rd works better.
Yeah,
Let's go ahead with
I'm
this.
indifferent.
And
23rd.
Let's go with the
23rd.
let's go with the 16th. It's a
if I
Friday.
can't make it, I can't make it.
So it's a Friday evening. We'll figure out the rest of it, but we can at least put it on our schedules for now that we'll do a retreat for the college on the 16th of July. Thank you very much for a minute of your time with that one. And if there's no other business before the board, we are adjourned. Have a great evening, everyone.
Good night.